first half, I mean, very scrappy, to say the least. A lot of challenges being made by both sides. The first 15 minutes, notably, were pretty scrappy. But the game calmed down after a bit. I think Stockport were lumping the ball to their outside, or their wingers slash outside backs. They just had a plan A. Every once in a while playing a plan B down the middle to Wooten and holding the ball up with Wooten, but nothing too much to talk about on a Stockport perspective. I think that was a woeful penalty. The ball was already almost out of play. Should have been an indirect kick, if anything. But anyway, for AFC Wimbledon, I think, winning some headers in the final third. Stockport really didn't have anything to show for it in terms of the set pieces. We won most of the headers, and Zanev collecting a couple of those. Going forward, I think we played a couple good balls into the final third, but I think we're really missing that wide man that we would usually see in a 4-2-3-1, like an Ayuba Sal or a Chislett who would play in that 4-2-3-1. It would usually be Pell kind of hooking out wide and making those runs into the box, or Davison or El Hamadi, since we're playing two up top. But Davison's not really known to take his men on 1v1. There was one instance where Davison tried to take his men on 1v1 on the wide area and then just kind of turned it around, held the ball up, and then took a touch and drew the foul just outside the 18. It looked like a penalty to me, but drew the foul just outside the 18, in which Chislett unfortunately hit it straight at the keeper. Full time, AFC Wimbledon 1, Stockport 0. A lot to talk about in that game. It was quite eventful. There weren't too many clear-cut chances for either side, but the game itself was quite eventful. Very chippy, very scrappy. Emotions were running high, especially in the first 15-20 minutes. The game kind of calmed down after a while in terms of tensions, in terms of late challenges, but it always seemed like there was going to be that late challenge, or that there was going to be that person that was going to get into a scrap or a fight. But that's just typical League 2 football. It wasn't the prettiest football in the world. It was not world-class by any means, but I think we did enough on the day to win. I think we really matched Stockport's intensity and physicality. That was one thing that was a concern for me going into this one, is that Stockport is a team that are pretty physically imposing. They have players like up top, as in Wooten, the striker. I thought he did good on the hold-up, but he was one of their most notable players. Aside from that, like, they didn't have too many players that really stuck out aside from ball-playing players in the midfield that were able to string passes together, like Collar and Crowsdale. I think they were able to string good passes together, and Noyle on the right-hand side cut inside a lot and made it difficult for us. But I think we matched their intensity, and in terms of physicality, like I said, they're a very physical team, but Josh Davison was brilliant today. He was able to frustrate their center back number 5, Byrne. And, Byrne was chugging his shirt, pushing him, pulling him around, fouling him a couple times. He got on the book eventually. I think Davison was brilliant on the hold-up today. Usually it would be Davison going to ground sometimes a little easily. Like, he would be hit or miss on the hold-up. He would hold it up well sometimes, and other times he would be a little weak. But I thought Josh Davison was fantastic today. We matched their physicality. We won plenty of headers in our final third defensively. We didn't win too many headers in their final third, but we were able to shrug off their set pieces and whatnot. And I think it's a good point. It wasn't world class, but I think we did enough to secure that 1-0. Zanev kind of a little iffy today, actually, on a couple occasions. Distribution. He's back to the old Zanev ways. A couple times he kind of shanked a clearance or two. Thankfully, it didn't amount to anything. And there was one moment where there was like a cross coming in, 85th minute. There was a cross coming in. He was a little slow to track back on the cross, and then instead of tipping it over for a corner, he actually palmed it back out towards play. But, I mean, it was a good enough redirect to where the person running onto it, Byrne. What's his face? Byrne. It didn't go straight to Byrne in the top of the 6, but he palmed it out to where Davison was able to challenge Byrne, and Byrne stuck a foot out for a goal kick, whatever. But Zanev, he did okay in terms of collecting crosses, making himself physically imposing in the air. So I'd say an average game for Zanev. I'd say a 6. I'll get into player ratings later. But anyway, now that I talked about those generalizations, let's go in chronological order, shall we? First 15 minutes of the game, very scrappy, very feisty, might I say. Emotions, tensions running high. And I would like to say that it was started by Harry Pell with a couple of challenges. He got in the book early. There was one moment where he had a kind of a head-to-head collision, maybe a bit of an arm in there on one of the challenges. But then the yellow card offense was another instance where he got his arm in. Stockport fans, even the commentary, I was listening to the commentary for a bit for the away commentary, a little biased. He said, completely intentional, terrible challenge. And yeah, he did stick his arm out, but it wasn't like an elbow like that or anything. He just stuck his arm out like this. It was more of like a forearm or about a forearm to the head as he tried to win the header. Maybe to try to protect himself as he went for the header. I don't know. Yeah, it might have been intentional, but he didn't elbow him or anything like that. So maybe a yellow card there is fine for Harry Pell in that instance around the 15th minute. But very chippy, might I add. Stockport with a couple of fouls of their own. One on Armani Little from, I think it was Wright, the center back, who got in a late challenge on Armani Little, who I thought had a good game, Armani Little. Won some challenges in the first half. He was a little bit more quiet in the second half, but he won a couple headers. And I think he just got stuck in a couple challenges. Good enough of a performance from Little. Penalty happened in the 20th minute, never a pen. Zanev low to his left. Not the best penalty in the world from Hippolyte. It was well placed, but not with enough power. And Zanev was easily able to get down, get a decent hand on it. Not a strong hand, but a decent enough hand on it to steer it towards the outside of the post and back out to play. Lee Brown cleared it away. After that, it just became a hoofball for most of the rest of the half. AFC Wimbledon trying to lump it forward a lot with Lee Brown, for example, when he would pick up the ball, or Woodyard trying to play it forward to the likes of Davison and Al Hamadi. Maybe gave the ball away once or twice. I think Davison was a bit better in terms of the hold-up. Usually it would be the other way around. Al Hamadi would be physically imposing enough to not get dispossessed, and maybe Davison would go to ground a little easily, not as physically strong as Al Hamadi. But Davison played really well today. He made it very difficult for Byrne, number 5. Byrne fouled him a couple times. There were a couple of times where he tugged his shirt, arm over the shoulder, and the referee didn't call most of those, by the way. Just an absolute knobhead ref. But Davison made it very difficult for Byrne, and eventually Byrne got frustrated, got on the book. I think he had a very difficult time against Davison today. Davison didn't really have any clear-cut chances in terms of goal scoring chances. He had a really nice volley with his left foot from outside the 18-yard box, but it was straight at the keeper in that instance. Davison didn't really have too much else to do aside from winning the hold-up. Pell was surprisingly on the attacking end a lot on the wide area. Not really known for his 1v1 ability, but he put a couple decent balls into the box whenever he was on those 1v1 instances. So first half ends, scrappy first 20 minutes, last 25, Stockport were played out to their wide men a lot. They're very predictable. We had good shape, good defensive shape. In the second half, I thought we played a few more passes. We strung a few more passes together instead of playing it long. We possessed pretty well. Got a good cross into the box that went over the head of everybody. Biller picked it up. Maybe Rydell for Stockport. If you're Rydell, you want to close that down a little quicker, but he didn't close it down quickly enough. Biller put a good ball into the box. Pell shrugged his man off with the shoulder. And then after he tried to get back in position, he slipped. Whoever he was marking, I think it was Camps. Pell completely outmuscled him. Free header back towards the far post. After that, Stockport slowly started to build up the pressure cooker. They stopped playing it long and stopped switching the play, and they started to knock it around a little bit more with Collar dropping deep and then playing it to the final third. Crowsdale did a good job in terms of winning challenges and playing it forward from a Stockport perspective. I think Noyle was very good on that right-hand side, their number 3 right wing back, bringing it back, drawing a couple of fouls. He was a very tricky player, but he couldn't really find a really good opportunity to put the good ball into the box. He did a good job. He was like a Jack Curry, He would get forward with pace, cut it back, play it to somebody down the center, But I think overall we had good enough defensive shape. There were a couple moments, though. There were a couple moments in the last 10, 15 minutes that were a little shaky. They switched it over. They nodded it back to Paddy Madden, and Madden steered it home. But thankfully he was offside. In that instance, I think it was just I think it was Lee Brown in that instance. I'm not sure if he got beat in the air. I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to look back on that. But near opportunity. Yeah, it was Perry Pell, who had a great game overall, but kind of let us down on this exchange. It was the very last opportunity of the game. He kind of waited for the ball to drop down a little bit and then tried to stick his head out to win the header instead of trying to jump and win the header early. And one of the headers nodded it towards Paddy Madden. Madden tried to chip Zanev, and Zanev went like this and then palmed it back down. That was a very scary moment in the final minute of the game. I think that time we kind of switched off a little bit defensively. And one moment, a few minutes before actually, where Hussein Biller tried to get in a challenge on McDonald on the near side and just kind of overcommitted. McDonald got past him. Thankfully, the cross was a poor one. It was a little bit too far over the head of Madden, who tried to knot it back into play, but the ball was already out of play by then. Very rough moment for Biller, who I thought had a good game overall. I thought he had a solid game, Biller. It made it difficult for their left wing back Rydell to really do anything. Usually Rydell would try to, take a couple touches into space, put the ball into the box. He's a very good crosser of the ball, whips it in very nicely. But Biller would always close down that space pretty quickly. Yeah, player ratings, Zanev 6, Biller 8. I would have given him, 8.5. I would have given him a 9 if he didn't have that rough moment in the last few minutes of the game. Kalambai, I think, had a 7, won a few headers. Pierce, 7.5, did decent enough. Brown didn't really get beat when he was on the 1v1 situations like he usually does. 8. Woodyard, 7.5. Won a few headers. Joined the attack a couple times. Little, 8.5 in the first half, maybe a 7.5 in the second half, so 8 overall. Chislett, did a good job dropping deep, allowing us to have another outlet to be able to play to, and I thought he played a couple good square balls, advancing the play. 8. Harry Pell, 8.5. Al-Hamadi, Psycho Janet, 9. I thought his overall positional awareness was good. There was one instance where he was 1v1, did a step over, and then played it to Chislett, who took a shot on, and it was blocked. Chislett actually had a volley from outside the 18 as well that went a few yards wide, but it was actually deflected out for a corner. Chislett almost had an absolute screamer from a corner that was headed away. Yeah, Jack Curry, 8, I'd say. Had a decent impact on the game. I'd say overall, on average, I'd say 7.5 to 8 if you average out all the performances. So, a good win. Good 3 points. We held our nerve. Last 10 minutes it got a little dicey, but I still think we did enough to secure that 1-0 victory. If you look at the stats, 12 shots, 3 on target for AFC Wimbledon, and 9 and 2 for Stockport. I think we had a bit of a hard time dealing, aside from having a bit of a hard time dealing with Wooten, who held the ball up pretty well effectively, a couple of instances. I think we did enough. We won plenty of headers, cleared our lines, did enough to secure that 1-0 victory.